Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the continuation of the UK sim racing community's Porsche Cup Season 4 as hosted on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, that is iRacing. And today we mark rounds 3 and 4 of the 12 round series, which continues to ask the question, who is the master of the Porsche Super Cup 992 machine? And today we are at the Italian circuit of Monza for what is expected to be an absolutely fantastic round of racing action. A very different round that lies ahead compared to our season opening rounds all the way back 2 weeks ago in the United States at Road Atlanta, and more of a debrief on that shortly in terms of the differences we can expect today and what we can typically expect from the Monza circuit in particular. But before we get there, a little bit of housekeeping with regards to our broadcast for tonight. For this broadcast is being brought to you as a post-round broadcast for your viewing pleasure. What does that mean in simplified English? Well, it means that the racing itself that you're seeing on screen today is not live per se. The racing itself happened yesterday as of Thursday the 6th of October, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live for your viewing pleasure, and I, as your host and commentator, do not know what happens over the course of any part of the racing, whether it be in the pre-warm-up practice session, in qualifying, in the sprint race, alternatively in the feature race. It's completely raw, and we're trying to bring it as close as possible to that raw live experience for you. And indeed, if you are tuning in as well, the racers who took part in this round, we do advise you not to give away any spoilers or intentions within the chat, as otherwise that may ruin it for the guys and girls tuning in at home, and indeed it could be some spoilers ahead. But with that in mind, where can you tune in for this broadcast? Well, of course, it's always been brought to you on the official Twitch channel for UK Sim Racing. You go to twitch.tv/UK Sim Racing to get all of your racing action, and the broadcast is here on the Twitch channel tonight. But we have an absolutely brilliantly packed schedule ahead, and well, as we get ready to go racing, let's take a look at the season ahead as it currently stands. Well, of course, we started off 2 weeks ago, back on the 22nd of September at Road Atlanta. The American circuit, which saw many a driver come a cropper with regards to losing the rear end at the sweeping segments, particularly in the first half a lap, but also some brilliant battles in the high-speed run down the back straight, some charges through and through for the final couple of corners onto the next lap, indeed some very brave moves being made under braking from our drivers. And Road Atlanta being the ultimate rollercoaster ride in which to kick off our road racing experience in Season 4, and today we are at the Monza circuit, known in full as the Autodromo Nacional di Monza. This circuit very different, as we'll see from the circuit map shortly, due to the fact that we've gone from sweeping corners to very long and extended straights, and at this circuit our drivers will be spending over 75% of their racing lap full throttle, and that changes the whole dynamic of the racing when it's all about straight line speed and being brave on the brakes into the heavy braking zones. In 2 weeks' time we'll be continuing our tour of the European continent, with Monza marking the start of the European tour by heading to the Belgian circuit of Spa-Francorchamps, and a circuit that needs no introduction. While the longest circuits on our calendar, albeit not quite as long as our season finale, but we'll come to that shortly. But for rounds 5 and 6 we'll be seeing our drivers head on out to the Belgian circuit, and there it is definitely going to be a mix of the first two rounds, or sorry, the first two host venues I should say for the first 4 rounds, all being brought together in rounds 5 and 6, where it's a circuit that has a little bit of everything, and that will be on the 20th of October. Then we make our way into the second half of the season, start off around 7 and 8, where we return to Italy for the Imola circuit, and at the Imola circuit you can imagine, whereas the emphasis at Monza is about straight line speed back in rounds 3 and 4, Imola takes a bit of that, but also combines it with some absolutely tenacious chicanes, and that means we've got a slightly different variant of the Italian theme of speed, and we look forward to seeing how that plays out on the 3rd of November. Then for our penultimate 2 rounds, we head into Australia for the Mount Panorama circuit, but you all know and love it as Bathurst, of course, the regular host of the 6 hours and 9 hours of Bathurst, and even the 12 hours, and there in rounds 9 and 10 it will be the story of who is the king of the mountain as they make their way up the official roads of the Australian circuit and down the mountain and back and forth and around. And well, what a test there, because if our drivers can keep it clear of one another, they've got to keep it away from the wall and not lose their balance as they make their way over the very tricky mountain complex. That'll be on the 17th of November, and then what a bigger challenge, indeed our longest circuit on the calendar, the 1st of December is where we wrap it all up with rounds 11 and 12, and that will be at the combined Nürburgring circuit, so combining effectively the Berlin Grand Prix circuit with the official Nordschleife loop, and that means our drivers will be going through a very extended lap. And whilst we're not necessarily going to have as many laps in the race in rounds 11 and 12, the laps that we do have will be the ultimate test of putting it all together in the Porsche Super Cup 992 machine, and that will be on the 1st of December to wrap up the story. Now, what you'll also see there, that today is the final post-race broadcast round. It will be the case that from rounds 5 and 6 onwards, so in 2 weeks' time, all the broadcasts will be live. So we'll actually be broadcasting on the live racing action, which brings you that absolutely raw, authentic deal rather than the post-round broadcast. But you've got plenty to look forward to there in the only 4 pairs of rounds that are coming up, but indeed plenty to look forward to tonight. And as we look forward to tonight, let's of course give you a recap of the standings in both our drivers' classes as our drivers get ready to go racing at Monza. Started off, of course, with the gold class here, and what we can see is after the first 2 rounds of racing, David Sampson leads by 2 points over Stuart Bickley, and these two have started to break away for the rest of the gold pack early on, with Sampson on 31 points, Bickley on 29 points. Then we've got a 7-point gap to Richard Simnor. However, Richard Simnor is not alone in the pursuit to the top 2. 2 points between himself and Mikey Pollard, and a further 2 points to James Parker, with Emil Coopmans there being the best of the rest in P6, and also a bit of a no man's land. 4 points for Parker, but also 7 points ahead of Ryan Davies. And the story for Coopmans will be, can he potentially extract greater results tonight to bring him closer to the top 5, or will he find himself being pulled backwards towards P7 and down? The likes of Ryan Davies, Lee Holmes, also there, Mark Custers, and also Joe Newman, just to name the rest in the top 10. But also there in P11, watch out for Gordon Ramsay, a driver who had a lot of pace at Road Atlanta, but due to a mix-up with regards to the instant count that was applicable to the races, he spent more time in the pits than being able to do the race that he wanted, and that was unfortunate for many a driver. To be fair, we're not just singling out Gordon Ramsay, but many a driver did end up picking up drive-throughs that they weren't expecting. That has been rectified for the remainder of the season, so we shouldn't see as much pit action today. Indeed, all the action should stay out on circuit as much as humanly possible. But meanwhile, the complexion in the silver class. Steve Hughes leads on 33 points, 8 clear of Jack Ward. And the difference here, whereas in the gold class we've got 2 drivers up front who seem to be running away with proceedings early on, Steve Hughes had a very strong performance in the season opener, but more so in race number 2, where the points were greater and up for grabs in the feature race, or round number 2 we should say. And Jack Ward there in P2 has the major challenge of really taking that fight to Steve Hughes. However, let's not count out P3 and P4 drives of Travis Linscoe Hatfield nor Simon Bamber, for the simple reason they both showed absolutely brilliant pace, but had to tiptoe a little bit around the circuit, and Linscoe Hatfield in particular having a difficult race number 1 in round number 1, but being able to turn it around in the round number 2, and we're expecting him to be a bit more consistent today, because that's why Hughes is at the top of the standings in the silver class, absolutely consistent and on point in both races, and can he continue that trend tonight? Outside the top 4, Glenn Humberstone there on 13 points, only 2 clear of Alistair Hatcher, and David Stewart a further point behind, with Danny Weston, Mark Oliver and Richard White in hot pursuit, and it means the silver class is really coming together in the pursuit of P5, and Humberstone right now the man on the bubble, and needing trying to get close to Simon Bamber tonight. And then we have Karen Willisey completing the run out of the top 10 in P11 there, the best of the rest, being pursued by Matty Wild, Tom Weston, Aaron James, Ash Coverdale, Craig Shield, Lewis Willisey and Steve Kershaw. But as we now look from our standings to our circuit for today, well, of course, it is the Monza circuit, located in the town of Monza in Italy. This circuit is made up of 11 corners, as seen from the circuit map provided to us by simracingwiki.com. And the theme about this circuit, as we have already said, it is all about the straights. This circuit has 4 absolutely tremendous runs. The start-finish straight, firstly, which runs all the way up to the Rettifiglio chicane or Prima Variante turns 1 and 2. Emerge from that, coming out of the heavy braking zone, you've then got to be loud on the throttle as soon as you turn through turn 2's apex for the run all the way through Curva Bizarro, also known as Curva Grande, in the run up towards turns 4 and 5, the second chicane, the Segunda Variante, also known as the Regia chicane. However, turns 4 and 5 a little bit more open by comparison. You can take a bit more speed through that chicane and emerge from there. You charge up to the first turn 2 Lesbos, turns 6 and 7, Lesbo 1 and Lesbo 2. 2 medium speed corners, which see the second of the 2 corners, a little bit slower than the first. Exit out there, and then you make your way down the third straight, also known as the Curva del Seraglio or the Seraglio straight. There's a small kink through the road, and that's where we're going to see plenty of battle in action as our drivers make their way all the way up towards the third and final chicane of the circuit, and that is the Ascari chicane or Variante Ascari, where turns 8, 9 and 10 are an absolutely killer combination of a left-right left, where it's all about getting onto the brakes for turn number 8, rotating the car through turn 8, onto the curbing of 9, and as soon as you feel ready and the car's balanced, you've got to go full throttle, commit to turn number 10 and charge your way down the back straight towards Curva Parabolica. And as our drivers make their way into the final corner there, it's all about getting to the apex as soon as possible and getting on the pattern and letting the car come out wide to exit out the corner and charge across the timeline to do it all again. 3.6 miles is the lap length, and the majority of those 3.6 miles will be made up of straight line speed and full throttle action, but with that of course will be the focus on slipstream in the racing. We'll be very tactical in nature, knowing when to go for the toe and when to go be bold on the brakes to battle your way into the heavy braking zones. Indeed, all the braking zones at this circuit very heavy by comparison with other circuits in the classical and also the more modern theatre of motorsport, and that's what presents the ultimate challenge at Monza. Now, to give a quick reminder of the rules: in qualifying, a lone qualifying format shall be used. where all of our drivers will take to the circuit in an isolated instance of the Monza circuit, the Monster circuit. It is an absolute monster, we should say, and that means we'll only be able to see the perspective of one driver, and that's the driver who's provided us with the replay file for tonight, and that'll be Matty Wild, who we'll get to ride on board with for the silver class. He takes us around for his qualifying laps. Drivers have 8 minutes to set their best possible time. They have an unlimited number of laps. They just have an 8-minute time limit in which they will be able to set their laps, and their best one will count towards their grid position in race number 1. Now, for the purposes of the races shall commence via standard start, as is the tradition in Porsche Super Cup. The sprint race grid, so that will be the round 3 grid for tonight, shall be set based on the results of qualifying. Then we'll see in the feature race of round number 4, the grid shall be a partial reverse grid based on the results of the sprint race with the top 8 positions inverted. What does that mean? Well, the winner of the sprint race or round number 3 will start in P8 for the purposes of round number 4 of the feature race. Conversely, the driver who finishes P8 in the sprint will be started on pole for the purposes of the feature race, and those who finish 9th and downwards in the sprint race, well, that's exactly where they'll start on the grid for the feature race. We should point out, we said this earlier, there are no mandatory pit stop requirements in the sprint or the feature race. We are not expecting drivers to come into the pits unless they picked up a drive-through penalty. Alternatively, they picked up damage on the car they need to repair, but a driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 17 or more instant points. But that's all the rules and regulations, but I know what you're all here for. You're here for the live racing action, and as we do cut over to the circuit, here is our schedule for tonight. Times in British Summer Time, that's BST or Universal Coordinated Time +1, UTC +1. In approximately 3.5 minutes time, we will be going into qualifying for 8 minutes to see how our drivers do get on, and particularly focusing on Matty Wild, and then we'll be making our way over to the grid at 8:10 for the purposes of our first race of the evening, the round number 3 sprint race. 12 minutes of racing action, plus of course the final lap beyond the overtime, and who will come out on top there in the fast and furious shorter race before we take a brief breather and then return for the feature race, which will kick off at approximately 8:25 this evening. And in that one, 30 minutes of racing action, 2.5 times the time duration length of the sprint race, and therefore the ultimate change will be balancing the car and also making sure to maintain that pace and that tenacity over the entirety of the 30 minutes. In the commentary booth, you have myself, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Brit of the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all of your racing action tonight, and indeed over the majority, if not the entirety of the season. In fact, it will be the entirety of the season as we get ready to go racing, and well, drivers who are getting ready to go racing right now. We do have many out there on the circuit, absolutely itching to go, including Mark Custers, who we can see right now holds the fastest lap in this final warm-up session, as he makes his way through turn number 3 here, charging on through. You can see a number of drivers on the circuit map presented in the top right corner of your screen, getting used to running in the toe of one another and all trying to capitalise on the slipstream here in this final practice session, getting a feel for what that dirty air is like into those heavy braking zones, such as we see here at turns 4 and 5 at the Regia chicane. But as our drivers continue to make their way on and around, and we look to Travis Linscombe Hatfield, I think one of the men to watch out for tonight from the Rabbit Hole Racing, the American driver here, who was very unfortunate to lose out at Road Atlanta, what could have been a brilliant pair of results. Indeed, really redeemed himself in the second race of the evening. But as he heads on down the start-finish straight here, keep your eyes out for the number 15 driver. I do think a big result could be on the cards for him tonight. But let's not forget other members of the silver class, including Glenn Humberstone, who we see here making his way down the Seraglio straight. But let's not also forget all of you there in the Twitch chat. And indeed, if you are tuning in via twitch.tv, do not be shy. Feel free to say hi. We don't bite here at UK Sim Racing or UK SR, and we say hello there to Richard Simnor, also to Simon Bamber, and indeed Richard Simnor asking us before we went live, can I get a whoop whoop? And indeed you can get a whoop whoop, Richard. We can also see there Stuart B24 saying good evening all, good evening to you as well, Stuart, and I hope you are all doing well. Of course, it is Friday, the week is over, the working week is over, well, at least for the majority of us. Those who are working the weekend, I do feel for you, I know that experience, but at the same time, if you are working the weekend, hopefully this can bring a smile to your face and get you all pumped up for working that weekend. And for those who are not working, hopefully this is the best possible way you can crack off the weekend with some fantastic Porsche Super Cup racing action. Because of course, these are Porsche Super Cup 992s where they do not have any ABS, they do not have traction control, and that means that these cars are absolutely delicate on the brakes and they're absolutely skittish on the throttle pedal. Get it wrong with the throttle pedal, you may end up sending the car around. Alternatively, you'll find the car will want to go completely straight and not turn with you. It'll be one of the two. And on the brakes, if you go too hard on the brakes initially, you'll lock up those front brakes in particular, and the car is not going to do anything other than go in a straight line under braking, and trail braking becomes near on impossible. But as we see Daniel Webber making his way out of the first chicane, and now heading through Curva Grande here. Half a minute to go before we head into qualified, and the DCW Racing Blue driver currently P9 out of our overall 32 drivers taking to the circuit today. An absolutely rampacked grid, and the big question will be who will be able to get themselves on pole with their respective classes. Indeed, who can put themselves right up the front on the grid, because of course it's Monza. And what does that mean? Well, Monza Turn 1 will scare many a sim racing and real world motorsporting driver. It is one of the biggest concertina effects on any racing calendar, where we're going to see all of our drivers come from what is almost top gear in the majority of cases onto the brakes into the corner of turns 1 and 2, and it's all about surviving through those. If they make their way through turns 1 and 2 and also through 4 and 5, then they'll just about be able to make it through the rest of the open lap, and we should see things settle down. But speaking of settling down, all the drivers will be settling down into their cars now to go into qualified, and well, we are going to focus on Matty Wild when he makes his way to the end of the pit lane shortly from DCW Racing at Red. The number 28 driver will take us around. I believe right now he's just getting himself set up, and indeed it's a vacant circuit at the moment with everybody having a lone qualified session, but we will see it Wild very shortly. As we see there for the first time in the UK SR Twitch chat, Liam Lynch UK saying hi and good evening to you, Liam. I hope you're doing well as we just await here Matty Wild to make his way out of the circuit, and indeed here he goes, making his way out of the pit lane now. So as he makes his way out of the pit lane here, what's the big focus then for the Monza circuit? Well, we talked about it already, straight line speed. But how do you gain straight line speed at this circuit? Well, there's a number of things you can do with regards to the setup of the car, but the key one is focusing on running as little downforce as possible, as little aerodynamic downforce as possible. That means the rear wing is not going to be heavy on the rear of the car. The idea being they'll run very limited rear wing in order to be able to gain as much top end speed as possible. But that's just one part. Then it comes down to the actual driving around the circuit, and to do well, the idea here is you need to clear the corner apexes as soon as possible. You've got to be able to get back on that throttle very early, initially about 25% to 50% throttle, but as soon as you can feel the car biting and hooking up, you want to be back onto 100% throttle to charge out of the corners, and you want to, wherever possible, avoid those very nasty, highly prominent orange sausage curves at the chicanes. We saw Wild there clipping the one at turn number 5, because those curves will unsettle the car massively and normally cause the car to spear off circuit. But as Wild makes his way now up into the second of the two Lesbos here at turn number 7, coming on through, get himself all warmed up on this lap. We can see here the number 28 driver definitely enjoying the machinery as he heads on through, and we also say hello there in the Twitch chat to Matrix 4701, and also it's Wardy there saying good evening, come on team at Willisey. Indeed, Team Willisey, one of a number of teams taking part in this series. We've got an absolutely rampacked roster of teams from 88 Tech through to DCW Racing and Willisey Racing as well, and well, there's plenty more, including K9 Esports, and as we see here, Matthew Wild making his way through Ascari. Indeed, right now, turning it up to about 80%, this being his out lap, and indeed his warm-up lap, but the next time he comes on around, he'll be going full pelt, and we get ready to ride on board here with the number 28 driver in the silver class as he takes us onto his first flying lap, as he makes his way into Parabolica Curve, and we jump on board with the driver. Making his way out of the corner. We clear the screen and just keep the circuit map up for you. He heads on through, staying all the way over to the left here to extend the run down the start finish straight, taking as long as possible run before he hits the timeline in order to gain as much straight line speed. And as he heads out towards turn 1, you'll notice here it's very calm, albeit he's in top gear, building up that speed and getting ready to go onto the brakes. And as we bring up the dashboard here, breaking down from 166 miles an hour from the 150 meter board all the way down to 50 to 14 miles an hour as he clears the second corner apex, and now accelerating up through the gearbox once again as he charges his way through Curva Grande at turn number 3. Flat out here as he makes his way through the long right hander, staying nice and tight to the apex, but never daring to put the right hand wheels on the apex curve to avoid over-rotating the car. And as he lets the car drift out to left, he now brings it over to the right before braking there at where's the marshal's post, the orange marshal's post on the right hand side, which is affecting about 125 metres down through turns 4 and 5 there in second gear, and now exit out and head up towards the first of the two Lesbos. We take a different approach now. It's the case we've got medium speed corners, dropping down from 4th to 3rd gear and down to 82 miles an hour as he accelerates out to the corner and now charges up towards Lesbo 2 at turn number 7. Braking to the 50 metre board there, coming down the gearbox quite sharply to 3rd gear, but getting back on the power nice and early, coming out of the corner, full pelt now all the way down the Cerro Galero straight up towards Ascari. Building up the speed here, not going to be quite on the speed of we saw the start finish straight, but getting close in 6th gear, head up towards 155 miles an hour plus as he brakes there at the 100 metre board and coming down the gearbox to 3rd gear, sweeps the car through the left hand and brings it onto the right hand curving of turn number 9, and then full throttle here as he heads through turn number 10 and exits out, letting the car drift out as much as possible, but keeping 2 wheels within the white lines there to stay within track limits, and now heading down towards turn number 11 up towards Parabolica Curve after heading down the final long straightaway here to complete the lap, and onto the brakes he goes at the 100 metre board, coming all all the way down to fourth to third gear, coming down the further gear to get the rotation of the car, get the power down, and now accelerated out, letting the car drift out to left, and that is a lap of Monza as brought to you by Matty Wild as he comes to the timing line here. And what's his first qualifying lap going to be? As we bring the data up on screen, it is going to be a 50.680. Well, it was a very smooth lap, and with smoothness normally comes a lap time. Indeed, many of the greats of motorsporting disciplines, including the likes, of course, of Jenson Button in Formula One, the 2009 world champion, were known for and are continue to be known for their smoothness under driving. And whilst Matty Well perhaps did not have the most exceptional pair of rounds at Road Atlanta, when you drive that smoothly here at Monza, it could serve him up a treat. But as he heads back to the pit lane here to get himself set for one more out lap and then a flying lap, given he's got 3 minutes to go, we take a brief breather just to let you know. And if you do enjoy the racing that you see as hosted by UK Sim Racing, did you know that you're able to give back in a very straightforward manner in order to support UK Sim Racing? And well, the question is, how can you do so? Well, you can do so via our affiliates. For UK Sim Racing is affiliated with multiple sim racing and real-world motorsport companies, including but not limited to Swelly Omeda Sim Racing Coaching, Race Anywhere, and Demon Tweaks. And if you head to our website, which does appear on screen, the uksimracing.co.uk website, if you head there today, there is a page, as you can see in the top left corner there, listed as discount stroke affiliate links, whereby you can make purchases through our affiliates. There's affiliates images on screen, and you can see that now. If you go to that link, this is what it will look like. And if you click on any of these images, so Race Anywhere, Demon Tweaks, Swelly Omeda, Sim Racing Coaching, or even Amazon, in fact, our recently newly introduced affiliate, you can make purchases through these links, which result in discounts for you as the buyer and a kickback to us. And in turn, because we're a non-profit organisation at UK Sim Racing, all of our affiliate earnings shall be invested back into the community to fund future series. Additionally, some of our affiliates provide discount codes which are available in the UK Sim Racing Discord, and do remember that a little purchase could go a long way in supporting UK Sim Racing. But I can tell you what else goes a long way right now, and that is this second flying lap that's coming up for Matty Wild as we return to our race pictures here. Indeed, the number 28 driver right now already on a 50.680. Of course, we cannot see the qualifying times of any of our other drivers. We will only get visibility of those when we go over to the grid. So for Matty Wild right now, indeed, it is a bit of a black hole when it comes to how exactly he's shaped up versus his peers as he charges on down towards turn number 11. His focus will be on just trying to improve. Of course, not improving on this lap because it is an out lap, but now we'll get to see the lap from the exterior cameras, so you'll get that perspective. What it's like when a driver pushes 100% here in a qualifying session at Monza, and I can tell you it is right on the ragged edge. It doesn't look like it. It looks like such a straightforward lap, but when you're in the cockpit, in fact, while they decide to come on in, well, that does not look as though, I think he's happy with what he's done, and then had he managed second guessed himself with regards to can he actually improve again. But Wild comes in, just build up there to a lap, deciding no, he's not going to do it in the end. And now we get ready then to go racing shortly, as he will not be eligible to go out there and put in another flying lap as he jumps to the fore end of the pit lane. But that will be his qualifying session complete. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a very brief breather as we accelerate the sessions forward and make our way to the grid for the purposes of what is the sprint race of round number 3. We'll be back within the next 30 seconds. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's take you through the grid for the purposes of our first race at Monza. And that is round number 3, the sprint race here in the Porsche Cup Season 4, hosted by UK Sim Racing. It is James Parker who lines up on pole in the end with 148.715. Congratulations to him for the overall pole position and in the gold class. And then it will be Mark Custers alongside him from Samside at Canaan Esports, lines up P2. Stuart Bickley and David Sampson line up on the second row with Mike Pollard and Emil Koopmans on row number 3. Then we have Daniel Webber and Jack Atkinson on row number 4. Andrew Jones and Gordon Ramsay complete the top 10 there on row number 5. Ryan Davies, the privateer, out-qualifying Steve Hughes from Rabbit Hole Racing. Steve Hughes taking P12 and therefore pole position in the silver class. Congratulations to Hughes. Lee Holmes and Misha Berger there making up the 7th row behind them. And then we have the 2 silver drives of Travis Linscombe Hatfield and David Stewart line up on row number 8. Behind them on row 9, Jack Wood and Ian Manners there. And we can see the Willisey Racing driver out-qualifying the gold driver and the Samsung Canaan Esports driver not having the strongest of qualifying sessions. Can he turn it around in the race? We have Matty Wild and Lewis Willisey line up on the 10th row. Matty Wild in the end, his lap, a strong one, putting him up inside the top 20 with Willisey Racing's second driver there just alongside him. And then on row number 11, Stephen Kershaw and Aaron James, P21, P22. The 2 silver drivers there just ahead of row number 12, which consists of Alistair Hatcher from 88 Tech Racing Team Purple, who is joined by Tom Weston. Then behind them, we have the combination on row number 13 of Richard White and Mark Oliver, followed by the gold driver of Richard Simnell. They're having a very difficult qualifying session and not putting the time in, much like Simon Bamber, in fact, on row at number 14. And then Karen Willisey and Glenn Humberstone make up row number 15. And then on our final row is the combination of the silver drivers of Thomas Davison and Danny Weston there from Zilla Racing, who brings up the rear and completes our 32-car grid. But what a packed grid we have here today. We're only 10 seconds away from going racing, and we will await the lights as the clock ticks down. 5 seconds to go, and then we'll wait 5 red lights before we get the green to go racing for the sprint here. And it's lights out, and away we go for race number 1 here at Monza. And as all of our tries get underway, 32 cars here, all charging down towards turn number 1. And look at the scramble contact in the rear there between some of our silver drivers, well, the 88 Tech cars in the carnage. But as they make the way down towards turn number 1, heavy on the brakes they all go. And 2 by 2 for most of our tries here. We've got a 3 wide a bit further back there in the battle for about P10. Andrew Jones in the mix there for DCW Racing Red. But most of our drivers coming on through. We've still got a scramble behind Steve Hughes, losing 2 places off the start line. Further behind, it looks like all of our drivers have safely made it through. We've got Alistair Hatcher slightly off circuit. Somebody going very slow. That's Hatcher right at the rear of the picture. But always 31 out of 32 drivers all making their way on through safe and sound. But meanwhile, the big story, Travis Linscombe Hatfield has jumped up to P13, gaining 2 places at the start. And we can see that Jack Wood getting back ahead there behind. Oh, that Steve Hughes, they make the way through Regia and head on out of turns 4 and 5. But as all our drivers come charging on through, Travis Linscombe Hatfield having a brilliant start. Further back there, we've got a bit of contact between drivers. Further back, we can see Stephen Kershaw here, battling side by side with Simon Bamber for P19 as they head the way through the first of the 2 Lesmos. And as they make the way towards the second one, we look to drivers who emerge from it already. And James Parker, well, he started on pole and he's now proceeding to run away as he qualified as they make the way up towards the Ascari chicane for the first time asking. But look at this from David Sampson. He's having to defend hard from rival Stuart Bickley as they make the way into turn 8. Bickley on the inside. Sampson tries to cut off his nose, but in the end finds he's got to give a little bit of space. And as they head through the third chicane for the first time of asking under race conditions and make the way up towards Parabolica Curve, you can see the gold class here in a long line, and further back the silver class really heating up as they all come down towards turn number 11. But as they charge on through, once again Bickley looking for the move. He can't find it, and behind them in P4, Mark Custers just watching on here and thinking, I think the Dutchman, how can he get involved in the mix? Well, he's got to be patient, given that the 2 drivers in front of him right now are squaring off against one another. Meanwhile, Steve Hughes running wide down the final corner. He's going to drop even further down with all the marbles, and that's going to cost him very dear. But after 1 lap, it is James Parker who leads ahead of David Sampson P2, Stuart Bickley in P3, followed by Mark Custers in P4 as they head down towards turn 1. Mike Pollard P5, racing there close behind the DCW Racing blue outfit, followed by Daniel Webber P6. Then we've got Emil Koopmans P7, a whole army of DCW Racing machines, and then we have the privateer of Koopmans breaking up the trend there in P8, followed by Jack Atkinson in P9, then Gordon Ramsey P10, and then Andrew Jones P11. We've got a car going very slowly there on the left hand side. I believe that somebody may have actually missed the chicane sliding, going very slow as a result of compensate. I believe that is Ryan Davies who got it wrong, unless I'm mistaken, as all the drivers come up towards the braking zone. Webber versus Pollard here, and Pollard goes up the inside. In fact, that's Webber, my apologies, and Custers also, well, Custers getting it wrong as they come through turns 4 and 5, and Custers goes straight line on. He'll have to give up the place, of course, he'll have to give up the time he's gained. But look at this, you can see that Koopmans already trying to get into the mixes. Meanwhile, Pollard also coming on through here, and it is absolutely on the charge for DCW Racing, and behind, Koopmans trying to get into the mix. Oh, goodness me, and it's Atkinson who's lost the rear of the car and goes on around at Lesmo 2 as they make the way out of the corner. He stays on the inside there and thankfully getting the car out of the way. Otherwise, everyone would have had to have tried to clear that through one way or the other, but it wasn't to be. And Atkinson right now with a rare spin makes his way back up to speed, but he's lost the best part of 10 places almost as they head their way down towards Ascari. Further back, we can see that we do have Willesey here. Cameron Willesey battling with Danny Weston, and Willesey up the inside of Weston and gaining the place of P22. That's the equivalent of P7 in the silver class as they head for Ascari once again. But we've got battles left, right and centre in classes and between classes as they make their way towards the end of lap number 2. And my goodness, in the scramble here, heading their way down towards turn number 11. We can see Custer's falling a little bit back here. He's got Lee Holmes for company, and meanwhile Andrew Jones finding his way and cutting his way ahead of Jack Ward, but Jack Ward also getting into the mix here as they head towards the timeline to complete lap number 2 and head on to the third. And while the time is ticking down, we're already 1/3 of the way through the time duration, but of course the race still presses on all the same, and we bring the battle box up in the bottom right hand corner of your screen in order to give you an idea of who's battling around one another in terms of cameraman's focus. And Jack Ward under some pressure here from Lee Holmes from 88 Tech, but Lee Holmes not making the move. They're a bit of a lock up from behind from what was Ian Manners, unless I'm mistaken, and Manners actually falling a bit backwards to Richard Simnor as a result, and Manners under some major pressure now as they head on through. And we ride on board the gearbox here of the Samsung Kane and Esports driver as they make their way up towards turns 4 and 5, and as they come in the long charge here, you can see that Simnor is looking for the move up the inside as he goes for it. Well, Manners makes the car as wide as possible. Simnor's going to look for the move here on the brakes. They make the way heavy on the brakes, and Simnor locks up, and he goes on straight here and cuts across the circuit. He'll have to give the time he's going back, but that's how close the threshold is between getting it right and getting it wrong. It was a brave move from Simnor not to be, and Atkinson, meanwhile, is coming through the field very rapidly indeed. The man's on fire, and right now trying to chase back after the positions he lost coming out to this corner only moments ago. But as they make the way through the right-hander at turn number 7, Atkinson's got a long way to go, and of course every driver he gets closer to ahead of him, those drivers will be that little bit faster as the pace continues to intensify. Meanwhile, we look up to the battle here for P6 between Gordon Ramsay, who's just gone around the outside there for the Saints, versus Mike Pollard. And well, it was a dismal day at Road Atlanta, but I can tell you the number 22 driver right now from Scotland is absolutely thriving here at Monza, gaining places, 4 gains since the start. He may not have had the strongest qualifying session, but he's a born racer. You can see that as they head down towards turn 11, and just ahead of them right now, Emil Koopman's also trying to go on the move here versus Daniel Webber. But right now, the German driver from DCW Racing Blue holding firm there in P4 as they make the way towards the timeline once again. But as they come on out of the final corner, we look a little bit further back. So the battle's going on just to be outside the top 10 and be inside the top 15. Ryan Davies in the critical position of P15 right now in terms of that accolade. As they make the way across that timeline here, you see Richard Simnor under major pressure behind from Simon Bamber. And Bamber here, well, I think he knows he's chasing a gold driver down, but I don't think he cares. I think he wants every possible place as they head up towards turn number 1. But onto the brakes they'll go shortly here, and will the privateer be able to make the move? I don't think so at this time. I think he's going to have to wait and watch. But speaking of watching, well, this is Ian Manners still under pressure from Misha Berger and also Jack Atkinson behind, and Ian Manners right now are really starting to act as a bit of a rolling roadblock, and that's not to besmirch his reputation, but that's what happens when you start to battle into these chicanes. You just lose so much pace and you almost bring everybody to a standstill. As we see a lock up there in front for one of the DCW racing machines, but our focus is on Manners. He's on the left of your pitch as they go onto the brakes. Berger up the inside, and Misha Berger makes his way on through. Meanwhile, a bit further back, Matty Wild battling up the inside there of Stephen Kershaw and has to back out. He went for it late on the brakes, and I think almost thinking he wasn't going to get the car stop, but Kershaw just sails on through that and holds on to P6 in the silver class. Matty Wild stays P21 overall, P7 in class. As they make the way out to the first Lesmo and down towards Lesmo 2. But meanwhile, as they head up towards the next corner, we see a little bit just further up the road. Oh, goodness me, and what on earth has happened to the 88 Tech Race and Team Cyan Machine and Lee Holmes? He's gone for a spin there at turn number 7, it looks like, and he can go nowhere other than wait for the field to come on through. But meanwhile, speaking of coming on through, here comes Ryan Davies battling with Richard Simnor into turn number 8 here, and Davies holds firm versus the gold driver behind him. The 2 gold drivers right now battling for P11 in class, P13 as they exit out of Ascari and head down towards Parabolica. We have to look a bit further up the road, because further up the road we've got a battle here, and oh goodness me, and that is Daniel Weaver losing the rear of the car there on the inside of Parabolica curve, trying to put the power down too soon, and the DCW race drivers battling with Emil Koopmans. Well, Koopmans now has emerged in P4 as we focus on him, but look who's behind him, Gordon Ramsay here, who is continuing to pick off places left, right and centre. He's lining them up and knocking them down, and as they make the way under braking here into the first chicane into Rest Video, Ramsay's going to try and go outside outside to inside here. Can he get it done? It's going to be bold, but Ramsey carves open the space. But of course, he wasn't fully ahead. And what that means is Koopmans has a lot more width on corner exit to put the throttle down and try and make the breakaway. And you can see now Ramsey trying to look for the move, and Mike Pollard in this mix trying to help the other driver out and also get the place of his own as they make the way all the way up towards turns 4 and 5. Heading up towards Regia they go, and this battle continues, and Pollard squirming behind it, trying to make it 3 wide. He can't find the place, but Ramsey up the inside there and gets the place done for P4. A nice move there from the Saints driver, classic move into the Regia chicane, and now Pollard thinks, well, if you can do it, I can do it too. But Koopmans says, no thank you, one at a time only, as they make the way through turn number 6 and up towards 7. But you can see Pollard is waiting, and behind them, that's Linscombe Hatfield, the Rabbit Hole Racing driver here, the silver leader right now. He's only got 2 places between himself and Jack Ward, who's P2. You can see Ward there in the rear of the camera, but Linscombe Hatfield and Ward are absolutely flying in the silver class and have left their contemporaries off into the distance. Meanwhile, speaking of the contemporaries, we've got a battle building here between Thomas Davidson and behind him Glenn Humberstone. Davidson up the inside there into Lesmo 2. There's a lot of damage on the front of that car. Is he taking a brake board for a little bit of a joyride? I think that's a brake board hooked at the front of the car, in fact. But regardless, that's not going to help with the aero on the car. No siree, as they make the way up towards turn number 8. And as they head on towards the brakes here, well, Glenn Humberstone looks up the inside, but he's not late enough on the brakes to get the job done. And the 88 Tech Racing driver from Team Cyan is going to have to wait once again. But as they head on through, just a bit further up, we've got Kershaw here battling side by side with what is Hughes. And it's Hughes on what is the right hand side of your picture, I do believe, and Kershaw on the left as they head into the braking zone here for Parabolica just ahead. Ryan Davies getting ahead there. Oh, with that was Lewis Willesey getting ahead. Oh, what was Ryan Davies? They merged on the corner. Oh, goodness me! And losing her in the car, Steve Hughes there. And onto that brilliant pole lap in the silver class for Steve Hughes. It's all gone so horribly wrong. Meanwhile, speaking about things trying to go a bit right, Misha Berger right now will be thinking he got it right and he made his way past Manners, but look at Manners on the outside here coming on back. Contact between the two drivers, a little bit of a squirm under braking there from Berger, but the Saints driver holds firm and holds onto position, putting his faith in the car, and as they make their way out of turn 2 and up towards 3, the battle continues as they roll their way on through, but heading up towards turn number 4 now in the long run. Berger on the outside here, and well, it does look as though Manners just coming through. I think Berger trying to back the car off a little bit and biding his time as they head up towards the braking zone. But look at this from Simon Bamber, P3 in the silver class, P14 overall, and still trying to find his way past Richard Simnor. And I think this is critical for Bamber. He's worried about Willesey. That's Karen Willesey behind the Briton from Willesey Racing, really mounting that pressure. And we see Ryan Davis in the rear of the picture, losing the rear end on the exit of Regia and getting the car out onto the runoff area there. And that's not going to help him at all. He's lost a couple of places as a result of that, but he's lost no place in class. It's only overall position. He's lost 3 places as he makes his way out towards Lesbo 2, but still 1.5 minutes on the clock here, and we've got one more lap after this, and right now that means one more lap of opportunity for Emil Koopmans to make the offensive on this man of Ramsey as they make their way out to turn number 10 and head up towards turn 11. But as they come charge on through it, it's not just about the drivers up in the top 10, of course, and we do have a number of gold drivers who are a long way down and still scrambling for positions. Jack Atkinson, you remember, had that spin early on in the race, and he's had another instant afterwards, but he's battling side by side now with Lee Holmes as they make their way up towards turn number 8. Onto the brakes they go. Holmes on the right, Atkinson on the left. And the privateer here backs out as Holmes holds the position. Meanwhile, as they battle their way up towards Parabolica, we look to Ramsey versus Koopmans. We've heard in our ear that they've been battling side by side into Parabolica, and it is Ramsey who still holds ahead here in the battle for P4 overall in class as they make their way onto the final lap. The clock will strike 12 minutes before we get to the end of this lap, so that'll be 7 laps turn. And Ramsey right now trying to go all the way around the outside on the defence to get the inside into turn 2. Koopmans now in the drag race as they make their way out of the corner. And as we ride on board here, Emil Koopmans, you can see whilst he was on the outside, just did not get the traction down by comparison, and Ramsey just able to break away as they head through turn number 3. But as they make their way for the long right-hander of Curva Grande, the gap right now standing at 3.5 tenths. Can Koopmans get closer, or is he more worried about Pollard behind, who looks to be getting inch by inch closer and closer to the back of this fight as Koopmans outbrakes himself into the corner, and as he makes his way straight line on, well, that's going to be a place lost and time lost as well. And Linscombe Hatfield now is surely going to go around the outside here. Meanwhile, further back, that is Simnor losing out. Oh, goodness me, it's a little bit hectic there, and we see one driver going off circuit. I believe that's Misha Berg getting it wrong, who you see in the rear of the picture, and Simnor in fact holding the place as Ian Manners also watches on from behind as they make the way through Lesbo 1 and up towards Lesbo 2. But it's all kicking off the final lap. We see Simon Bamber there losing places to Matthew Wald and Danny Weston, as well as they head up towards turn number 6. And we're hearing that Emil Koopmans has got it wrong somewhere on circuit. But whilst all that's happening, we must look from them as we see somebody turn. I believe that's Misha Berger, but we must look to our race leader here of James Parker, who's been off in the distance for some time. That distance, quote unquote, being 2.1 seconds. But as he heads into the final corner here, he started on pole, nailed the run to turn 1, and on corner exit, each and every time he's been absolutely planted to the throttle. And now as he plants his way out of Parabolica, the checker flag awaits him, and it will be James Parker from 88 Tech Racing Team Purple who takes the win in round number 3 here at Monza, ahead of Stuart Bickley P2, and David Sampson will complete the top 3 overall. And in the gold class, that's the gold podium for you. Gordon Ramsay P4, Mike Pollard P5, and then we have Travis Linscombe-Hatfield who makes it a win in the silver class in the sprint in round number 3. Congratulations to him, ahead of Andrew Jones, Emil Koopmans, and then it's Jack Ward who comes home P2 in silver, P9 overall, ahead of Daniel Weber, Richard Simler P11 as he's come to the line, Ian Manners P12, and then Karen Willisey completes the silver podium there in P13 overall, ahead of Thomas Davidson a bit further back, Stephen Kershaw P15, and then Glenn Humberstone P16 there, ahead of Ryan Davies as all the drivers make the way to the line, and Lewis Willisey P18, Danny Weston P19, Matty Wild P20. Still more to come on that lead. That's Simon Bamber P21, Mark Custers P22, Richard White P23, Lee Holmes P24, Jack Atkinson P25, a difficult race for Atkinson in particular, and then Misha Berger P26 ahead of Alistair Hatcher, Aaron James, and then David Stewart, Tom Weston, Steve Hughes, and Mark Oliver. All of our drivers making it to the end on the lead lap, and we transition over to the 1 minute warm-up window before our drivers make the way to the grid for race number 2 here at Monza, or round number 4, of course, the feature. But how do we unpick everything that just happened in that 12 minutes? Well, we can't. That's the problem. We haven't got enough time to unpick it all. But what we saw there over the course of 12 minutes of racing was some absolutely brilliant battling in action up and down the field. The thing that seemed to catch out most of our drivers, to be fair, was the locking up of the brakes, particularly early on when the brakes were a bit colder. But even later in the race when they were trying to make those do or die moves into the corners, trying to gain those places, and some drivers just coming in a little bit too hot, and that catching them out as a result. And well, with the racing being longer in the feature, of course, it being 30 minutes instead of 12 minutes, will we see a bit more of a relaxed approach from our drivers after the first couple of laps? I reckon we may see some drivers calm them down, but the big name that everybody in the silver class will be looking at now, Travis Linscombe-Hatfield, an absolutely strong run, and Steve Hughes will be kicking himself for the mistakes made early on off the line and also in the run through the opening couple of laps. And can he redeem himself and make it a win in round number 4? Well, all that and more coming up very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, as we're about to transition over to the gridding process for race number 2 here at Monza, the 30-minute feature. But as we now transition over to that grid, let's take you, well, we can't take you quite through that grid, of course, because this is a replay file, and therefore that grid is not going to be set quite correctly, but we can see a lineup on the front row there. We do have Emil Koopmans, who took pole position, given he finished in P8 at the end of the sprint race. It was a bit of an error from the Dutchman right towards the end of the race. It did not work out for him, but what has worked out for him to his advantage, that he lines up on pole here with the top 8 reverse grid, Andrew Jones alongside, and we can see quite the army from DCW Racing all lining up behind. But as we do look to the blimp camera here, all the grid gradually forming on up. We can see Travis Linscombe-Hatfield starting P3 for Rabbit Hole Racing after what was that finish inside the top 6, a P6 finish. And what can he do from the second row of the grid? Could we see an overall podium for a silver class driver? Well, it hasn't happened this season so far, but could he make history in season 4? As we look a little bit further behind, and we can see Lewis Willisey starting right there in the midfield with still a minute of the gridding process to go. And well, for Willisey here, did well in the first one, but it's enough about that. We're about to go racing for 30 minutes. And it's lights out and away we go once again here for round number 4, the feature race at Monza, as Koopmans gets a good start off the line here and really holds everyone at bay as they charge down towards turn number 1. But as they get ready to go on to the heavy brakes, so we can see Koopmans defend in the middle of the road. It's a bit of a scramble from the DCW drivers behind, but Jones ahead of Pollard here, and they work out nicely. But Gordon Ramsay trying to come on through by comparison, and you can see Linscombe-Hatfield losing out a couple of places early on, but not fighting too hard versus the gold drivers. He knows his objective is to make sure he wins ahead of the silver class drivers. But as everybody makes their way on up through Curva Grande. Everybody has survived turns 1 and 2 once again, and now it's the chance of surviving the Regina chicane at turns 4 and 5. David Stewart making some ground as well as he heads up through Curva Grande, chasing after Mark Oliver, but as they all head their way up into the chicane or just clearing it, we can see most of our drivers now settling into line formation, although I say that Cameron Willesey getting a bit wrong, and Ian Manners trying to capitalise on the situation as the silver driver goes a bit deep, and we've got a car, we've got 2 cars off there, and that's the combination, I do believe, of Richard White and also, well, I think it's Aaron James getting it wrong. Oh my goodness, and we've got cars turned there, Lesbo 1, and it's all gone so very wrong for at least 4 or 5 drivers. We've got an ATX Tech machine in there, Glenn Humberstone, we've also got, well, Aaron James wasn't in the contact, but indeed he's made his way past all the drivers there, almost like a bowling ball going past a set of skills, and as he makes his way out turn 7 and down towards 8, he'll be great if he wasn't in that contact, but also Misha Berger was in that contact, and also Danny Weston is where to understand it, but that was not the way they wanted it to go, there's no doubt about that. But speaking of ways to go here, David Sampson, after a strong performance in race number 1, the Sampson K and an esports driver right now pressing on as they make the way all the way out towards turn number 11. I believe it's pronounced Calnan in fact rather than Canaan, but as he heads onto the braking zone here on the inside of James Parker, and Parker right now will take it his time building up momentum here, having started in P8, but I think for Parker it's all about surviving the opening couple of laps and then managing the car all the way through the remainder of the race, because of course we've got 2.5 times the time duration here in race number 2 at Monza, and that means effectively that it's about keeping calm and collected rather than absolutely sprinting all the way through to the finish. But as they head down towards turn number 1 here, we can see Parker on the outside, Sampson on the inside, but Sampson backing off a little bit and Stuart Bickley trying to get into the mix. Meanwhile, oh my good lord, and who on earth has just gone straight across all our drivers? Well, that is Ian Manners. Now, was there contact? I suspect there was some contact in the mix there, and there's even more contact as we see David Stewart coming into contact with Ian Manners as he tries to rejoin, but it's all gone very wrong for Ian Manners and also for Danny Weston. Well, it's gone very, but that wasn't Danny Weston, my apologies, that was David Stewart in the mix there, and David Stewart now with a wounded front end on that Porsche. The privateer will be thinking, what on earth has just happened, as it's all flashed before his eyes. But speaking of flashing before his eyes, we can see that David Sampson continues to feel that pressure from Stuart Bickley, as Bickley right now tries to flash the lights and get the move done here, trying to distract his rival as much as possible. In fact, no flashing the lights there as they make their way in towards turn number 7 and coming through, no move made this time around. But as they head all the way down the Cerro straight, we can see many of our gold drivers now in the top 10 really settling down into a rhythm. But the one big shock of all this is after what was a good start, Translincecum Hatfield has actually made a mistake on circuit, and Cameron Willesey right now looking to hold on to the leader silver class here, as we saw Bickley versus Sampson making their way through, and it's the case of Bickley losing the rear of the car. Oh my good lord, and that's a car that's gone straight off to the wall. Jack Wood taking evasive action. The Willesey racing driver will be absolutely fuming at the situation. I don't think there was anything else that the gold driver Bickley could do other than try and get the car stopped, but Jack Wood having to take cat-like reflex reaction, feeling in those reflexes have cost him very dear at the same time in going straight into the tyre barrier. Well, the damage to the front end of that car, it may be the case he has to bring the car on in order to get it repaired. We'll have to wait and see, but he's soldiering on for the time being. But that was an absolutely huge moment for Jack Wood. He's still P4 in silver class, P13 overall. That's not the way he'd be hoping to hold on to P4. But meanwhile, we're talking only moments ago about the Willesey racing driver Cameron Willesey, and Simon Bamber has now found his way ahead of Cameron Willesey as they make the way down towards turn number 1. A bit of a mistake from Willesey coming out of turn number 11. Behind them, Translincecum Hatfield now going back on the charge after what has been a very rough start to this race, dropping all the way down to P11 from his P3 starting position, but he's staying in the hunt here versus Bamber and Willesey as they make their way through Curva Grande once again. As they head on through, however, looking a little bit further back, we do have Jack Atkinson who's putting the pressure on Brian Davies for P15 overall. That's P10 in the gold class as they make their way through. You can see here Atkinson on the inside of Davies. Onto the brakes they go, and it looks like he's going to hook it up nicely, and it's the corners that have really troubled Atkinson of Regia and also the Lesbos, but he gets it done there, and now Lee Holmes says, well, if you can do that, I can do it too. And up the inside of Davies he goes, or is he going to get it done? As Davies tries to hold it around the outside, there's a lot of width on the outside of the corner there, but in the end he has to back off. You can't really go too wide into Lesbo too, and you can see that Thomas Davison thinking about making the move, but then in retrospect I think deciding, you know what, I can't make it count there, I'll wait until later on the lap. Instead now Bickley's going to try and come on through past the silver driver. You can see Davison squeezing Bickley too up the grass almost there, and I think perhaps not expecting the whip and also Bickley to try and come through so soon as they make the way into turn number 8. But as they head on through the left combination of Ascari. We look from them to up front, and we can see here Emil Koopmans, I should say, still leading the race. Mike Pollard in P2, and then we do have Andrew Jones in P3, and Jones right now, we've got the DCW Racing train there of Pollard, of Jones, of Weaver, and also Simnor, all running on through, all running together. And then James Parker right now will need to pick his way on through. And I wonder if the DCW guys are on comms right now saying Parker is coming, look busy, and start shuffling as they make their way down towards turn number 1. Well, Parker's going to try and pick off Simnor already, but I think Simnor here is going to go as deep as he can on the inside into turn number 1. And as they emerge from Red's video, Parker's not able to get the move done yet, but you can see as we ride on board here with Parker, but he's definitely seen all 4 cars in front of him and salivating on the prospect of picking off one by one. And when you've got 24 minutes to do so, and you do seem to be the fastest driver at the circuit today, well, that gives you a lot of confidence in order to be able to go for moves here in the feature race at Monza. But as he makes his way onto the brakes here, no way through at the moment. But speaking of no way through, I'm hearing there's been quite the incident from Tom Weston and also David Stewart. Now, I don't know if the two have come together. It looks like they may have. David Stewart's got a very heavily mangled front end on that Porsche, and he's in P9, P22 overall, but P9 in the silver class. But you see Danny Weston coming on through, and I think Weston here is going to make it quite straightforward for himself, given the fact that he does seem to have a bit of a straight line speed advantage here. Will Stewart try and outbrake his rival? Is the damage too much? I think that damage is way too much, and the Zilla Racing driver, the number 11 car, with his own war wounds on the front of the car, makes his way on passing up into P9 in the silver class. Is getting it wrong in the rear of the picture. That was Tom Weston as the Zilla Racing driver goes all wrong at Regia, just going a bit onto the gravel, the rear left tyre lighting up and sending the car in around, and that's unfortunate for him. Aaron James gains another place back as a result, and Aaron James was literally in the number 99 car, watched everything happen in front of him, just picked up places left, right and centre. I think he's made an overtake or two on the start of the race, to be fair, but he's gained a lot of places through attrition as he makes his way out to Lesmo 1. But as he comes on through, will it to Simon Bamber as we go 3 wide here into Parabolica. And well, Bamber, if you're wondering where he is in the mix, he's on the inside of the 912 UKSR privateer Porsche as they make the way out to the final corner. But you can see that Samson getting it wrong. It's 3 wide. Ramsey on the inside as well. Well, now who is going to back out here as they head across the timeline? Bamber right in the middle. He's got to pick his place in the middle. But you can see that Ramsey just hooked on the outside. He backs out. And it's going to be the battle of Gordon Ramsey versus David Sampson down in towards turn number 1. Ramsey on the inside here, and the Saints driver is not going to give this place up. There's no doubt about that as they make the way through Red's video, and he holds onto that P7. Effectively, he's come from P9 to P7 in the space of a straight line run, and as he heads out of the corner, well gained by him. Meanwhile, further back, we can see there Stephen Kershaw in what is the 88 Tech. Well, in fact, no, in the privateer machine, battling with Lee Holmes in the 88 Tech machine. But as they make the way in towards turn number 3, the thing for these two is they're in different classes, so they're battling right now. It's only costing them in the chase of the respective class positions, because Kershaw's a silver driver, meanwhile Lee Holmes is a gold driver, and Lee Holmes right now has got more pressure building, as that is Ryan Davies on his outside coming down into the Regia chicane. But Davies there, no way through. He's got to simply wait behind as they make the way through turns at 4 and 5, but heading on out of the corner and making the way up towards Lesmo 1 once again. We can see a little bit further behind Bickley also getting involved, and Davidson taking a cheeky move to the inside. And Davidson trying to get his nose in there, but you can see Davis was ready for it. He decided, right, I'm just going to open the steering wheel slightly and just let you frustrate yourself. And speaking of frustrate yourself, now Bickley comes on through here, and Davidson, I think, by trying to be bold, has actually lost out quite brutally as they make the way on through the circular straight once again. Meanwhile, up front, I can tell you that it's all continuing to kick off with Koopmans who leads, and then we do have Pollard behind him. But then the big question is about James Parker, who is inching closer. You can see here Simnor and Jones, both of the DCW racing drives, all switching things up, and well, it's going to be Simnor on the inside here into Parabolica Curve. The 42 drive swapping places, and of course, when you're racing for a team, what you can try to do, and I'm going to have to suspend my thoughts there, because that is Emil Koopmans who's had a spin coming out of the final corner. He's making his way back up to speed now, but the race leader has got it wrong at the critical juncture as he makes his way on through and back up to speed, and now drops all the way down, and this is going to be absolutely punishing, given the fact he's dropped all the way to PA, and now he's got some very fast drives ahead of him, and one of them, Simon Bamber, is right in front in the silver class, and Bamber's not going to want to give up the place unless he feels safe, and it's not going to cost him the opportunity to lead the silver class. But as they come through turns 1 and 2, they all settle into a line once again. Meanwhile, a bit further behind them, we can see that Atkinson continuing on his crusade to charge up into the top 10 of the gold class. He's in P10 in the gold class right now, we should point out, but in P14 overall, and I think he wants to hunt down the likes of Custers in P12, also Sampson in P9, and get himself up into that overall top 10 in order to give himself a little bit of confidence confidence boost after what was a rather traumatic race number 1 by comparison. But as they make the way on through, we're hearing that Ian Manners has been involved in an incident, and Danny Western as well. But as we continue to see what's on our screens here, Atkinson holding firm and chasing down Jack Ward, and Ward looking quite comfortable. Meanwhile, in the rear of the picture, we can see here a bit of a mad dash. We've got White there on, I believe that's the outside in the green and blue Porsche. He's a lap down, as we can see. Kershaw goes a bit deep under braking into the first of 2. Lesbos gets it wrong, and Bickley picks his way on through. Meanwhile, whilst all that's happening, Steve Hughes, the Rabbit Hole Racing driver running P6 in the silver class, P19, is now also trying to find his way on through. But I think for Hughes, it's more about trying to find the space and also just seeing where the opportunity lies. We're only, and I should point out, you'd think we've worked towards the end of the race already. No, we are not. We're only just over 10 minutes in, and the race and action does not stop coming as Atkinson makes his way up the inside and around the outside of Jack Ward through Ascari. A nice move there from Atkinson as he gains another place. But meanwhile, whilst all that's happening, I can tell you that James Parker has already found his way past Andrew Jones in the run to what was their Parabolica curve, and now as they exit on out, the story of the DCW Army trying to keep the 188 Tech Racing Team purple machine at bay. Well, one of them has fallen, albeit he's right there on the heels of the Challenger, and as they make the way onto another lap, onto lap number 7, and still many more to come. Now James Park has the next task, pick off Richard Simnor behind. Meanwhile, Gordon Ramsay chasing after Simon Bamber, and of course Bamber the silver leader. He's in amongst all the gold drivers, and I think the 912 driver at this point will be thinking about, can he maintain this pace all the way to the end and just prove to be that driver who was able to frustrate half the gold pack and also finish clear of his silver peers. Well, he's looking strong right now, and this pace is matching the pace of the leaders, it must be said, as he heads down towards turn number 4 once more. But behind here is his silver rival at the back of this group of 5 cars. That's Willesey Racing's Karen Willesey, who at any point will try to make his way past the likes of Sampson, Koopmans and Ramsey. No easy feat, any of the trio there, and if he can find his way through, he may just have an opportunity to go for the win here today in the feature race at Monza. But behind them, Travis Linscombe Hatfield a bit further back, chasing after Mark Custers right now in P12 is Travis Linscombe Hatfield overall at P3 in the silver class, still in a podium paying position after a win in, of course, the sprint races. Were looking good, but it wasn't the way he wanted to start this race, and I wonder right now how much further he can go in chasing down Willesey and Bamber. Well, that's only something that time and he can tell. But looking further back to Steve Hughes, we ride on board here with the Rabbit Hole Racing driver who looks to try and find the move here on Davidson as they make the way down the Seraglio straight, and this is in the battle for P6, the silver class, P19 overall, as they head up towards the braking zone. Hughes gets a huge overspeed, but he can't find the space, and Davidson puts the car right in the middle of the road. And you can see Hughes has just optimised this car for straight line speed in the toe, and when he's in clear air as well, that speed pickup there was absolutely tremendous. I suspect he's running a lot less rear wing compared to Davison as they make the way down towards Parabolica. Will we see a potential move from Hughes on the inside? Will he dive to the inside, or will he wait? No, he has to wait in the end, put it back on the brakes, and Will Davison really proved his defensive credentials. But whilst all that's happening, we should point out that Richard Simnor has made his way past Daniel Webber, and well, the DCW Racing drivers have swapped places. Parker stays with them, and then further back, well, you've probably seen it jumping around on our timing screens, but Gordon Ramsay has had some connectivity issues recently, just brief intermittent ones, and we hope that's not a sign of something bigger. Meanwhile, further back, we can see Jack Ward on the outside here for Willesey Racing in P4 in the silver class, letting Bickley and Ryan Davies through and decide not to fight them. And I think playing it smart as they make the way out of Resfidio and head up towards what is their Curva Grande. But meanwhile, whilst that's happening, Steve Hughes was at a major moment coming down in towards Refio gathering, but he hasn't lost. In fact, he has lost one place to Davison, and I think in fact he may have outbroke himself and then had to bring the car to a standstill to prevent picking up a time penalty. But as he comes through Curva Grande, Steve Hughes not able to make the move on Davison, who does seem to be very frustrating for Hughes to find a way on through. But as he makes his way back up to speed, still plenty of opportunities. We're almost at the halfway point of the 30 minutes, and with that, still plenty of surprises to come. And well, speaking of surprises, we have Richard Simnor now into the lead of the race, making a swap with Mike Pollard into the reduced chicane, as I've been informed. But DCW Racing continued to keep James Parker at bay. But the problem is here, and I do wonder whether they've decided to switch Simnor to the front of the group. And meanwhile, that's Ramsey going off, and with him there, almost coming on through as well, was, I believe that's David Sampson, two drivers that are carrying way too much speed for a Sky, and Ramsey just avoided it. In fact, I think there was a graze with the wall, but nothing major. Meanwhile, Emil Koopmans with a damaged car, which seems to be crabbing in a straight line. And what do you mean by crabbing? He's got the wheels trying to point as straight as possible, but they will not let him go straight, so he's having to hold the steering wheel at an angle in order to get the car to go straight. That's what we refer to by crabbing. Damage to the front suspension, there's no doubt about that. But Emil Koopmans not having a happy every day, as we've also got David Sampson into the pits. I think Sampson has been in contact with Koopmans. The two of them have come together, and that explains the story. But speaking of stories here, James Parker trying to force his way on through versus Daniel Weaver as they make the way out the corner. Weaver loses the rear of the car, putting the rear right tyre onto the gravel, and he's onto the grass, and well, he will not be happy about that. He'll feel as though he's pushed out wide, but James Parker, I think, will be saying, well, it's elbows out racing here. If you're going to prove to be a rolling roadblock, the group of you from DCW Racing, I've got to find my way through somehow. And Parker continues to push on as they make the way up towards Regia. Now he's only got 2 more to pick off if he wants to take the win here in the second race at Monza. It's Mike Pollard and also Richard Simler as they make the way up towards turn number 6. But as they come charging up towards the Lesbos, the gap between them 1 second. He's got to close that down first. I'm sure in the tow, the distant tow, he'll be able to close that gradually, but then it's about finding the way through. And we know that Pollard and Simler do not go down easy, much like their peers who Parker has passed so far. But as they make the way onto the circular straight, we look from them to a bit further back. And here's Cameron Willesee running P2 at the moment, but behind him, that's no joke, that is Charles Linscombe Hatfield, who disappears briefly, and back he appears from the ether as they make the way down towards the Ascari chicane. And for Willesee now, he can see one of his pursuers right in his rear view mirror, and that means it becomes ever more real in the fact that when you're running ahead of a foe and you can't see them, or you haven't got them directly behind you, it doesn't feel as threatening. But we know Linscombe Hatfield has a lot of pace when he's able to deploy it in the race, and whilst he is right now 9 tenths behind, Willesee will be thinking about how close will he be getting over the next couple of laps. And Willesee's got to think not about that, but think about how he can close up to the back of Mark Custers and use him as a slipstream magnet in order to gain more speed on the straight. Because as we've seen time and time again, depends on the setup of the drivers' cars, as we hear that Simon Bamber into the pit, and Bamber's come on in. I'm not sure what's happened to Bamber, unless it's a drive-through penalty of some description. Well, I believe it is, and that means now Cameron Willesee, this only becomes an ever more intense pressure cooker of a situation, because he's effectively now the leader of the silver class, with Bamber making his way out of the pit lane. It was a drive-through for Bamber, as I'm to understand it, and Willesee now has a huge opportunity in order to be able to get done. In fact, we've had it clarified from Simon Bamber in the Twitch chat, 9 litres under fueled, so it was the case. Of course, our drivers are allowed to set up the car as they so desire for these races, and well, Bamber not putting enough fuel in the car to get it to the finish, and that is a surprise and not a welcome one to be sure for Bamber. But right now for Willesee and Linscombe Hatfield, it means all is to play for here. The fortunate thing for Willesee is he's got Mark Custers between himself and Linscombe Hatfield, and he will try and keep the gold driver at bay as long as possible. Meanwhile, up front, we look to our top 3, and that's Mike Pollard, who's got ahead of Richard Simnor. And as they make the way out of turn number 7 and down the Serraglio straight, Parker continues to hunt his prey as they make the way up towards turn number 8. But you can see Richard Simnor here in the scramble, and Parker's going to look for the move. He can't quite find it this time around, and they have to wait their turn as they head into left-hander. But Parker makes his way on through Ascari here in the pursuit of the 2. But you can see how Richard Simnor right now, I think, feeling a bit squeezed between his teammate and their main pursuer as they make the way down the final stretch and up towards Parabolica Curve. Now, how will it play out this time? You can see that Pollard defending with Simnor. I think what Pollard's trying to do is give Simnor as much tow as possible before they go into the braking zone to make sure that Simnor is ahead, and Parker therefore will be thwarted because he will not be able to outbrake his rival due to the relative overspeeds and the lines between them. But of course, the risk that Simnor takes by doing that on an inside line as well is that the braking distance to the apex is shortened, and therefore he's got to be absolutely pinpoint perfect precise with those brakes. But he has been so far every single lap turn, and now as they make the way down towards turn number 1, you can see Pollard and Simnor put the cars too wide there and leave a little bit of space between the two for Parker to contemplate the Moses manoeuvre. But it is the case, he will not be parting the seas this time around. He knows that that is going to be only tantamount to danger as they make the way out of Retividio once again. Still 11 minutes on the clock plus the final lap, plenty more to come, and behind Jack Atkinson looking for the move here versus Lee Holmes. Holmes on the right, Atkinson on the left, and as they make the way through Retividio, it's Holmes who tries to hold the inside line. He gets it covered off. This is the battle for P8 in the gold class, P10 overall, the final top 10 overall position. And as they make the way out, you can see Stuart Bickley, who fell all the way down towards the back of the field, and he's cut his way all the way back up to P12 and is looking at this battle right now, thinking he can get into the mix as well. But Atkinson has the overspeed here as they head through Curva Grande and up towards Regia. When in return, Holmes here as the stronger of the cars on the brakes, or at least the braver of the brakes of the drivers as they make the way out of the chicane. Atkinson takes a little bit of gravel, and now as they make the way in towards turn number 6 into Lesbo 1, Bickley's going to look up the inside, he's going to mount the curbing there, and well, that's going to cost him a lot of speed and confidence in the car, and indeed he has to back out there as they head into Lesmo 2. But as they head through at Lesmo 2, We look back up to the battle for P5 and Gordon Ramsay right now with Daniel Weaver behind as they make the way up towards the Ascari chicanes. Weaver on the left, Ramsay on the right, and the Saints driver again defending hard here, digging in. I think he knows that he's not going to catch the top four, given the fact there is a 7.5 second gap between Ramsay and then Jones in P4, and instead he is focusing on one thing, consolidating this P5 in what has been a strong pair of performances. But speaking of strong performances, as they make the way up towards the braking zone, we are hearing that James Parker's made his way past the ways Mike Pollard. In fact, we'll get your feed of that very shortly, and here they are. It's not quite that. The story in fact is that Parker versus Pollard is in the drag race all the way down towards turn number 1. That's Parker on the right, Pollard on the left. Both of them right now have kept it clean, the elbows coming out, but you can see both of them showing one of a great race in respect as they make their way into the braking zone, and Pollard here trying to give everything on the inside, but the problem is, can he get the door shut on what is the outside there of turn number 2? A bit of contact between the two of them, but they emerge unscathed, the pair. A little bit of bumps and scratches, but nothing they can't fix, and as they make the way out towards turn number 3, Parker stays behind, but he's got the draft here as they make the way through Curva Grande and heading up towards turns 4 and 5, all the way in towards Regia they go, and you can see Parker being forced more and more to the inside here, and Pollard saying to him, don't come through, and Parker's saying, I will come through, don't mind you, as they make the way through turns 4 and 5, and Parker inside to outside gets the move done on Pollard, and we can see Jones now looking at this, but Parker has made his way into P2. There's only one more driver standing, and that is Richard Simnor, the man at the top of the tower. And can Parker find a way in the next 1.8 seconds to close down this man and then bring it on home for making it 2 out of 2? Simnor right now will be thinking that his team have done everything to thwart the 88 Tech Racing drive, and now DCW Racing Simnor has got all the pressure and the spotlight on him. Can he thwart Parker's chances as they make the way for Ascari? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But meanwhile, whilst that's happening, let's not forget we've got plenty of battles elsewhere as well. Custer's right now chasing after Weaver and Ramsay for what is a spot in the top 5 in the gold class, and overall as they make the way for Ascari, you can see that Ramsay taking a huge amount of curve at turn number 10. They're really mounting the curving as they make the way down towards turn number 11. Ramsay not hesitant to take the curves, and behind them we still do have a few combinations to consider, including Davison here versus David Sampson, and Sampson of course with that pit stop after the contact earlier on that we saw between him and another driver, and Davison making the move on Sampson up to P4 in the silver class, and more importantly passing David Sampson, a big name for him in terms of silver versus gold class, and Davison now up into P15 overall and really enjoying the racing as they make the way towards the braking zone. Look at Simon Bamber here also trying to come on through, but he's not going to be given the opportunity there, and Bamber has to wait his turn as they make the way out of Parabolica and on to another lap very shortly, but Bamber running P5 in the silver class, P17 overall as they make the way down across the line. It's a drag race now, and I think for Davison he would be trying to lend the toe to Sampson, but I don't think it's going to help. In fact, Bamber seems to be able to just come on through with his own momentum here, and the 912 driver at this point I think surged on through. Could he try and make the move for 2 places here versus Davison? He's going to go for it. But Davison out braking and getting the job done, and also a camera angle being a little bit deceptive, but Davison out brakes himself into turn 2, carries a bit too much speed, and Davison loses 2 places, and Simon Bamber does in the end make it 2 out of 2. But meanwhile, Daniel Weaver there getting it wrong. Well, I'm not sure exactly what's happened, but DCW Racing blue driver pointing in the right direction at what was the exit of the Regia chicane, but stationary by comparison. I think there's been a bit of contact perhaps between himself and Custers, alternatively with what is called Ramsay. In fact, Ramsay has dropped behind as well, so I think the two have had a bit of a squaring off because Custers has jumped up into P5, and we can see a bit of damage down the front end of the Saints machine as he makes his way up towards turn number 8, and now Mark Custers is in the hot seat with regards to that final position inside the overall and the gold top 5. Cameron Willesee meanwhile with the number 43 driver at this point, I think he must be thinking to himself, do not screw it up, because he has been running so consistently throughout the entirety of this race, and Linscombe Hatfield, you can see behind in the number 15 car towards the rear of the picture, has been trying to put pressure on. He's been trying to get close, but every time Willesee has just had an answer for him as they make the way in towards Parabolica. 6 minutes still to go, and as they make the way through the final corner, the pressure continues to mount for Willesee to try and bring home the win here in the feature at Monza. Further back we can see that Daniel Weaver, after having that instant at the Regia chicane only moments ago, now back in the fight versus Atkinson, Holmes and Bickley for the run to P9 overall, P7 in the gold class. I think Weaver's going to have to come into the pits. I think something's broken. There's a meatball flag being incurred. In fact, he comes on in, and that's not the time you want to have to make that pit stop. right towards the end of the race. But meanwhile, Davison here presses on and gains an overall place, but a bit behind Samson and indeed Bamber. Now in the rest of the silver class, I can tell you that things have mostly calmed on down outside of the battle for the lead of the silver class. Although I say that, we can see Jack Ward here. Well, he's chasing more so after a gold driver. Ryan Davis in front with Simon Bamber 7 seconds behind. So the big question is, who is going to be the winner of the silver class? Cameron Willesee, alternatively Travis Linscombe Hatfield. But otherwise, things have mostly calmed down in the class, and it is further afield where all the battling is really kicking off in the gold class. But what we can tell you right now at the front, with 5 minutes on the clock, that Simlot is being closed down by James Parker at a rate of approximately 2 to 3 tenths a lap. We think that battle is coming for the overall lead within the last 2 to 3 laps being turned here at Monza. But as Ward tries to hunt down Davies for an overall P12, we can see that Ward not giving in, and the Willesee racing team really coming on strong right now. The race finishes as it is, and I have to halt my train of thought there because Lee Holmes pointing eventually in the right way, and he's been in a bit of contact. I think that is with Jack Atkinson that the two have come together. But what I was going to say is that for Willesee Racing, they're looking at a double podium in this feature, P1 and P3 at the moment. Cameron Willesee on the top step and Jack Ward on the lower step. But meanwhile, whilst all that's going on, we can see that Gordon Ramsay making his way past him. In fact, it's all gone a bit wrong because we're just hearing Cameron Willesee has had an off track at Ascari, and Travis Linscombe Hatfield now comes back into the lead of the silver class. And how the tables have turned for the Rabbit Hole Racing driver. Started on pole in the class, dropped a long way down the order, and now he's back into the lead. But Willesee's only 1.2 seconds off. It could go either way right now. There's not long to go. Approximately three more laps to be turned. And as they come on through, we looked at Pollard versus Parker, and Pollard is coming back at Parker when all is said and done. So I think Simler at this point is going to be given all the breathing room he needs, as we can see they made their way out of Retvilio, and as they head up towards Curva Grande here, well, Parker right now will be thinking, right, I've got rid of you again, and I think Mike Pollard here is going to be thinking, no, you don't get rid of me that easily, as they make their way up towards turn number 4. James Parker defends the inside. You'd love to see it. Pollard coming back strong here for DCW Racing Blue as he goes a little bit deep into the corner. There's contact between the two of them, and Parker makes sure to get his elbows out and say to Pollard, you stay well clear of me. I need to go to Simler. But Pollard, if he can find that opportunity, he will come back for that P2. There's no doubt about it. Meanwhile, further down the order, we can tell you that Jack Atkinson now, having got ahead of Lee Holmes, albeit in very interesting circumstances between the two. He's hounding down Jack Ward and trying to go after Ryan Davies, who's just in front for P8 in the gold class. As they make their way up towards Lesbo 1 once more. A bit further down, we also do have David Sampson, who's on a bit further back there from Simon Bamber, who's made his way on through it, but no change from Thomas Davison behind, who's just not able to close on up. So it does look as though outside of the top 10, things have really settled. The dust is calming on down. But meanwhile, Travis Linscombe Hatfield here under pressure from Cameron Willesee as we ride on board the gearbox here of the silver leader, and behind that is P2 in the silver class. We have got a silver battle on right to the finish here, and as they make their way out of Ascari this time around, we briefly lose, then see Willesee reappear in our camera, but they make their way down towards turn number 11, and well, for Linscombe Hatfield, he knows he's got it all to do and not long left to go. 2 more laps as the leaders cross the timeline. They will squeeze in 2 more laps, making a 17-lap feature, and as they make their way on around, Hatfield knows all he's got to do is now his exit, because he does seem to have the car that's a bit fast on the straights by comparison, but Willesee here in the toe is inching closer and closer and closer, and objects may appear larger than they seem in the pictures, but that's not the case here. They are large, and it's Cameron Willesee looking for the move. He looks to the outside and swings it back to the inside. He throws up feint, and Linscombe Hatfield now finds himself on the outside, and Cameron Willesee on the brakes back into the lead of the silver class. But of course, it's all for now right now, because we've got one more lap. There's one more run of that straight. That's a rehearsal, and then on the final lap, can Cameron Willesee hold on to that lead through one of the most critical braking zones on the lap as they make the way through Curva Grande behind. Stuart Bickley's looking at this, and I think wondering, can I also get into the mix here versus the silver drivers, albeit he's in the gold class, and therefore it'd only be overall position. But he watches and waits, and I think Bickley might play the patience game. In fact, I do hope that Bickley plays patience here and lets this silver battle run out to the finish, for the simple reason we want to see Cameron Willesee versus Travis Linscombe Hatfield go all the way to the very finish, albeit we may not go all the way if one of them has a disconnection at this point, which would be heartbreaking for everybody involved. And as they make their way through Lesmo 2, 1 minute to go, Richard Simnell, your race leader, is already making his way on down towards Parabolica Curve. That will confirm effectively how many laps we've got left, but we can see Gordon Ramsay there with a slow down penalty, now bringing himself back up to speed, so Bickley will pick up a place there, and you can see Bickley looking for the move on Linscombe Hatfield here into Ascari. He backs out of it, he waits once again here. I don't think he feels confident he's able to get the job done. And then, of course, he'll need to try and pick his way past Cameron Willesee as soon as possible. But as they make the way up for Ascari now and head up towards Parabolica Curve, the race leaders making the way out of aforementioned corner already. Further behind, we can see that David Stewart has fallen behind Mark Oliver in the battle for P20 overall, or P8 in the silver class. And Stewart not having perhaps the race he's wanted today, but still enjoying the battling all the same after that contact much earlier on. And now making his way all the way down the Serraglio straight here. Can he get himself back inside the top 20 with little time to go? Well, we'll have to wait and find out as he makes his way into that braking zone, but not at the moment. As they make the way up for Ascari, and you can see Oliver looking very comfortable as they head on through it and towards the final corner. But indeed, the final lap now comes on, and with that final lap, here is the battle for the silver lead. Willesee on the right of the picture, Travis Linscombe Hatfield in the centre that cuts in behind, and then we've got Bickley watching on. We ride on board here with Rabbit Hole Racing's Travis Linscombe Hatfield as they make the way out of turn number 2 and head up towards turn number 3. And as they charge on through here, making the way through the long right-hander one more time. Linscombe Hatfield just does not seem to have enough right now to look for the move, but will we have it later in the lap? He's thinking about it. You can see that Willesee putting the car in the middle of the road initially and then recognising there's no need to defend hard as they make the way through the Regina chicane. Linscombe Hatfield all over his rival, carries more speed through the chicane, but the business is not really a place to go for a move as they head into Lesbo 1 as they make the way for the right-hander. Willesee goes a little bit deep. Linscombe Hatfield follows him and gets a snap oversteer moment. He has to correct the car. He had an opportunity. He's missed it, and as they make the way through Lesbo 2, Willesee looks safe for the time being as they make all the way up towards Ascari. Not long to go. Bickley's had an off-track behind. In fact, dropped a long way down the orders. We're to understand it, but we continue to focus here. But well, whilst we do focus here at the moment, we have to cut away for the simple reason that here's your race leader, Richard Simnor, and as he makes his way to the final corner, behind him is James Parker, 2 seconds behind. But in the end, it's not enough from James Parker. He got his way through the DCW army, but he didn't beat the boss at the end, and the boss battle is won by Richard Simnor as he comes to the line here for DCW Racing Red, taking the win overall in the gold class by 2 seconds ahead of James Parker, who's driven a brilliant race to P2, and Mike Pollard takes P3, Andrew Jones P4, ahead of Mark Custers, who you see in the rear of the picture there coming on through for P5, and then it will be as they come on through to the line. Is it Cameron Willesee? It is! Willesee Racing's 43 driver takes the win in the silver class, P6, as he crosses the line ahead of Travis Linscombe Hatfield, a brilliant battle to the line. And then Jack Atkinson will bring home P8 there, just ahead of Ryan Davies, and then it will be Jack Wood who rounds off the silver podium, making it 2 spots on the podium, claimed by Willesee Racing. Then Stuart Bickley at P11, ahead of Simon Bamber P12, David Sampson P13, followed by Thomas Davison P14, Lee Holmes P15, he's in the pit lane. We've got Stephen Kershaw P16 and Mark Oliver, who just in the end holding off David Stewart all the way to the end as they make the way out the final corner. He'll be coming home P17 as he makes his way into the braking zone, and then it will be David Stewart P18, Emil Koopman P9, Emil Koopman's I should say P19, and then it will be Daniel Weber, as I think Koopman's run out of fuel right at the finish line, in fact damage to the car. Daniel Weber P20, Matty Wild P21, Gordon Ramsay P22, an error right towards the end costing him ever so dear, and then Steve Hughes will be coming home P23. I think there's been a bit of a disconnect for Steve Hughes, in fact, on the final lap, so he's not going to be coming home P23. He'll be coming home a bit further back, but Danny Weston will come home in P23 as he crosses the line, and then it will be Steve Hughes P24, Tom Weston. In fact, Hughes retiring at the final corner. We don't know what's happened to Steve Hughes, but he's losing places on the timing tower, but Weston in the end at P24. Hughes will be, I think, P26 when it's all said and done, with Misha Berger P25, and then Hughes will be the final driver on that lead lap with Ian Manners, Richard White, Glenn Humberstone, Aaron James and Lewis Willesee completing the 31 drivers who made it to the race, and Alistair Hatcher unfortunately not able to make it to the grid. But what a brilliant race, no doubt about that at Monza, a fantastic race number 2. And well, let's give you a recap of those race results from tonight in both of our races. So as the results come up on screen here very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, we start off, of course, with our results from what was round number 3, or our first heat for today. And in that race, we did see, in terms of our top 10, James Parker taking the win in the shorter sprint, the 12-minute sprint for 88 Tech Racing at Team Purple by 2 seconds over Stuart Bickley. And then David Sampson completing the overall and also the gold podium. Gordon Ramsay P4, Mike Pollard P5, and then Travis Linscombe Hatfield bringing home the win in the silver class in our first race for what was P6. Andrew Jones P7, Emil Koopman's P8, Jack Ward P9, second in the silver class, and then Daniel Weber P10, with Richard Simnor best of the rest in P11, and then of course Cameron Willesee down in P13 taking the 3rd spot in the silver class, never on that silver podium. Then as we look to what were the finishing positions of the longer feature race, we can see in round number 4, the race that's just concluded, Richard Simler in the end taking the win by 1.8 seconds ahead of James Parker in P2, Mike Pollard P3, Andrew Jones P4, Mark Custers P5, all gold drives, and then your winner in the silver class, Cameron Willisey, making it 2 podiums today, a third and a win, ahead of Travis Linscombe Hatfield, a first and a second, and then Jack Atkinson P8, Ryan Davies P9, and then Jack Ward, the silver driver, who finished P3 in the silver class, completing the top 10, with Stuart Bickley, despite having a very difficult race, ending up finishing best of the rest in P11. But congratulations to all of our drivers for taking part. Indeed, fantastic racing up and down the field. And with all of our racing action concluded, there's now only time to say one more thing. And that is, thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy the show today and want to know more about the UK sim racing community in terms of all the series we run and everything in between in terms of how we're made up as a community and the things that we do outside of sim racing, then why not check us out either at our official website, which you saw earlier at uksimracing.co.uk. Alternatively, if you're a bit more of a Twitter person and you're so to tweet inclined, you can always go to our official Twitter at twitter.com/UK_sim_racing_. Also, a big thank you to our affiliates, without whom we'd not be able to do what we do, and that is first and foremost Swelly Meta Sim Racing Coaching, YouTube link available on screen, and Swelly Meta, one of the premier sim racing coaches for iRacing, a multi-champion in multiple series in iRacing, including in the Porsche Super Cup, and definitely someone to check out if you're looking to take your iRacing performance to the next level, whether it's one lap pace or overall race performance. Swelly Meta's got a coaching guide for all of it, and he can provide that live coaching as well. We also have Race Anywhere, and Race Anywhere is the provider of curated sim racing equipment, aiming to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community, and also Demon Tweaks. You can see their web address there, and well, Demon Tweaks is the provider of the most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide, so no matter what your level of discipline, Demon Tweaks could help drive you to realise your motorsport ambitions either on the simulator or indeed in the real world. And also our fourth affiliate, recently introduced, Amazon.co.uk. But as our drivers now cool themselves down and get ready to go racing once again, where do we go racing next time, I hear you ask? Well, we'll be making our way to the Circuit des Spa, Francorchamps, for rounds 5 and 6. Another 2 weeks' time. It'll be Thursday, the 20th of October, 2022, where we'll be bringing you the racing action live. Not as if it were live, but live racing action in 2 rounds of racing at a circuit, which will be a merger of all the experiences and combinations that we have seen so far at Road Atlanta in the season opening rounds, and also in the 2 rounds today at Monza, and you will not want to miss it. And well, with both classes seeing a mix up in the finishers today, who will be able to settle things down and make it a consistent run at the top of the gold or the silver class standings come the end of it. All that and more in 2 weeks' time. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we have been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain the Spit. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, have a fantastic weekend, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.